Hi, Allison. How are you?
Hi, Belinda. It's good to be here with you.
Um, I'm really excited for today's interview because it's a little bit different than what we normally do. And I have interviewed you before, but today I'm interviewing you as a testimonial interview. So I'm not going to start with your bio. However, I will let people know that if you want to learn more about what Allison does and what she brings to the world, feel free to visit her website, which I'll drop down in the notes as well. And it's embodied-brilliance.com. Embodied-brilliance.com. And that's where Alison Elsberry can be found. Today, today we'll be talking to Allison about her healing journey and how she healed herself. Now, our bodies are self healing, and Allison is going to exemplify how. So, tell us from the beginning.
Hmm. Yeah. So I just want to say it's a real honor to be able to talk about this and share, so beautifully and openly about the amazing healing capacity and the natural design, of our bodies. So my healing journey, well, I think we're always on some type of healing journey, right? Like it never really completely ends. Because we're just such an infinite being that always has potential to expand into. But I actually had a bodily experience. I don't even call it an injury. I just call it like a bodily experience because that's really what it felt like to me, where I was swinging in a tree swing and that had a rope and um, a wooden seat, and I was swinging about 4 or 5 feet up in the air. And the next thing I knew, the rope had snapped into off the tree branch, and down I went onto the ground. And upon the impact of that, my spine broke open in multiple places, and so did a few bones in my pelvis, and I hit my head pretty significantly as well. And when I came to, the wind had been knocked out of me because the impact was so strong that I was like really trying to catch my breath. And I remember laying there thinking, uh-oh, something has really broken open. And in that moment, when I remember hitting the ground upon impact, there was this big like flash of gold light that I remember that came from my pelvis all the way up through my spine and out my head. And as I came to and realized, uh-oh, something pretty major just broke open here. I wasn't sure how I was actually going to um, call out for help or receive assistance. And it just so happens that someone was walking by. I lived pretty rural at the time, but someone was actually walking by with their family because it was right at dusk. And I just made some noise and kind of like shouted out. And he ended up being a paramedic, an EMT. So
Can't make that up.
no, no, my angels were definitely right there with me. Um, and I knew bones had broken open, but I didn't know what to extent. So I decided to go to the hospital and get a scan to, really see what my body's expression, was doing in that moment. And it was helpful for me to go that path because I wanted to know what bones I could sit with and be with, and where these places were in my body that were actually asking for more communication and attention. And so I remember seeing the scan, and it was about 5 different levels of vertebrae that had broken open. But I was really lucky because although they were really significant fractures, they were all stable. So I actually didn't need anything external
Mhm.
to create a stabilization in the spine or anything like that. So essentially, I didn't need surgery. And my tailbone had shattered completely. And part of my sacrum, which is our triangle shaped bone at the base of our spine, had quite a few fractures in it as well. And I use the term broken open instead of break or fracture because
Mhm.
that's what it really felt like to me. It felt like something opened
Mhm.
and let out this wave of light, that forever really changed my experience of who I am in this physical form.
So interesting. What captures me is your use of words. Just you're very careful about what you say as far as, the breaking open
Mhm.
and the fracturing of the vertebrae, because in casual speak, a lot of people would just be like, oh, I broke my back.
Yeah.
Right. And those are very strong words.
Yeah.
Keep consistently going back to that. What are you
Mhm.
consistently bringing back up?
Yeah, I felt like that was part of my healing journey was how am I going to speak about this in a way that feels empowering? Like this happened really for my expansion and evolution as a human being. How did this experience happen for me to allow me to step more fully, into who I am? And when I talk about the way that my head, hit something, I still don't really know exactly what it hit. Just the sheer impact of how my body made contact and connection with the earth was enough just to roll my brain around in my skull enough to give it some good bumping and bruising for sure.
Yeah.
And so I definitely had symptoms of what people would consider post-concussion, but to me it felt more like a complete rewiring of my nervous system.
That was necessary.
Uh-huh.
Mhm. Mhm.
Absolutely.
There was a
Yeah.
gift in that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, now how did you begin that process?
Yeah, great question. So, as someone who comes from a body-based background and having a lot of knowledge of the body and being very much into somatics and spiritual emotional healing, and where we can access that through sensation in the body, I just let my body literally guide me to where it wanted to communicate with me. So, part of my instructions were to, you know, be horizontal in the bed, basically, for a certain amount of time. So, when you're not able to get up and walk around a whole lot and your brain is needing that downtime to reboot, and your body is literally telling you, hey, we've created some time for you to go in and look at these other things. There's not a whole lot you can do elsewise other than go in, right? So I really took that opportunity to go in, and I literally just first started by noticing where is discomfort in my body, where is that intensity, and tuning in there. And sometimes when that intensity felt like it was overwhelming, then I would kind of tune into where is it in my body where something's not feeling that intense.
Mhm.
Where am I not feeling overwhelmed? So that I could actually see my body as a complete and entire resource and not something that needed fixing, but just something that needed to be held and heard in her experience. And so I would kind of oscillate back and forth between those two experiences of where is my body asking for my attention? And then when that felt really emotionally intense, then I would tune back into, okay, where is a space in my body that is feeling relaxed, that doesn't feel intense, that doesn't have tension in it. So that, again, I could see my body as a resource that wasn't just a space that had sensation that felt intense, but that was a space that also held sensation that could hold the other sensations that felt intense.
Okay, so that I love that because it's basically, reminding your body that it's a whole,
Yes.
right? And so there's this discomfort down here. Oh, and by the way, over here, you can build this habit of relaxation that also is happening in the same space because we're
Yeah,
whole.
right. That's right. And that's what I personally attribute rapid bone healing and weaving to, not just the herbs that I was taking, like comfrey and other things, but the way that I chose to go at my body, meaning I wasn't going in and panicking and trying to fix something. I was literally going in and being 100% curious about what needs to be held and heard, and what's a bigger whole that can hold all of this right now. And I feel like weaving those things together is literally what helped to weave and mend, my bones in such an incredible amount of time, like a quick rapid recovery, so to speak. Yeah.
Well, okay, really quickly, how long did it take you to heal your bones?
Well, bones typically, they will mend back together in about 6 to 8 weeks. New bone does tend to form pretty quickly.
Mhm. Even the
Mine
vertebrae
started,
and backbone.
what's that?
Even the vertebrae and backbone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, Mine, I started to notice a significant shift and change within like 4 to 6 weeks. And I was able to bear weight, through my feet and my legs, quicker than I had anticipated, just because I was allowing that strength and vitality to return in its own natural rhythm and way, without allowing some other time frame of healing to dictate that trajectory for me.
Mhm.
Yeah. Whether or not that was going to take longer or sooner, that wasn't my goal.
Yeah.
I just had no idea. I was just like, okay, I'm just going to be here until it starts to feel better. Right. Or even not even that. It wasn't even about feeling better. It was really just about like sitting down and having a cup of tea with someone you hadn't seen or heard from in a long time, and them just catching you up on
Mhm.
everything that they needed to. So it was almost like a daily date that I had. All right, what does this vertebrae want to tell me today? And I got so much information from all of that, just visually, emotionally, physically, mentally. What beliefs was I carrying? What emotions was I carrying? And it led me all back to preconception time. Because what my gift in all of this really was to really understand from a pre and perinatal psychology lens, which I had been studying at the time. I got to take it to a whole new level of embodiment because one of the things that pre and perinatal psychology talks about is the preconception body. So the body of energy that starts to form, literally the energy field, the torus field, that our body is going to be created in once we're conceived. And that energy starts to form a field 3 to 4 months before the sperm and the egg are fertilized. And
What?
so
Stop it. What? That okay. Okay. That's really, really interesting.
Mhm.
So the baby is forming even before conception, before the mother and father get together
The energy
at
body,
the moment.
the energy field, the matrix, the web of energy that holds the frequency and conditioning that creates the environment that our nervous system and our physical body organizes around in utero starts 3 to 4 months before we're
Before
conceived.
intercourse.
Yes. Mhm. Because it's that field of energy is a mixture of what our parents are feeling individually and together in their relationship. And it also includes the emotional and psychic imprints and what's going on in the lives of our grandparents as well. So it's like a soup. It's a
Yeah.
soup. It's a soup,
Yeah.
right? And then we're the main ingredient that gets added to the soup, right? And then that main ingredient takes on all the flavors and textures of all the other ingredients that have been put into it. So it's one of the most simplest explanations about how our nervous system and how our physical body organizes itself in utero around that matrix web field of energy that happens prior to us even being conceived.
That is nuts. That's mind blowing.
Yeah.
Okay, so how did you, being horizontal and communicating with your vertebrae, lead you to that?
Yeah,
Like
great question.
in the
Mhm.
conception energy.
So one of my daily prayers and intention was not just to connect with my body in that moment and see where something was needing to be witnessed or held or heard, but to be led to the places inside of me that needed to be held in unconditional love. So where could I love up on the places inside of me that were really asking for that? And what I started to notice was it was this field of energy that was like literally showing up in my visualization. And then I realized I kind of started to connect the dots and I realized, wow, this is what I've been learning about. This is the preconception body. And this is what all the babies and children that I've been working with over the years, had always shown me as well, and how much that impacts things.
The
So,
preconception body.
mhm.
Mhm. The kids that you worked with when you were an occupational therapist.
Yeah, and as a craniosacral therapist, yeah. Uh-huh.
And so you were able to heal yourself without any intervention from, outside sources.
That's right. I didn't even take pain medicine. I think I took like a Tylenol type of thing maybe once.
Mhm.
hmm But I just had, so many other tools to be able to meet myself in that way. For me personally, that was the most aligned path because it was important to me that I wasn't numbing something that I had previously been numbing or that I had previously been scared to be present with, to feel. I didn't want to abandon some part of myself in any way. And so I found ways to be with the pain and discomfort that would come up. So breathing was a really great one. Visualization was a really great one. had different tools of tapping. Yeah, just all kinds of different things. So,
You say visualization.
mhm,
What are you visualizing?
yeah. So oftentimes it would be gold light um, coming in and
There
surrounding
it is.
yeah, the area where the discomfort or the sensation that I might have been feeling was. And I would visualize a lot of light surrounding that area as a way to just kind of give it permission to be there. And that's the other thing that I that I really learned about making friends with the pain, the discomfort, or any sensation, whether it was physically or emotionally or mentally or spiritually, anything that came up
Mhm.
was really about giving it 100% permission to be there and acknowledging its presence.
So would you say that the fact that you were able to connect with the discomfort that you were feeling physically because you did not numb it in any way, that then it brought up more discomfort in your emotional and mental state. And then you were able to also acknowledge that and give it comfort.
Yes and no, because it was a balancing game, right? Because, I also noticed that sometimes focusing on the intensity just made it so much more intense. And so that's when I would shift to, okay, I want to stay in my body with the sensation. What's the best way I can do that right now? Okay, where am I not feeling pain or discomfort in my body? And maybe it was my big toe in that moment.
Right.
So I would just literally bring my conscious awareness to my big toe, not abandoning the other place that wasn't feeling most desirable, but just shifting my focus somewhere else in my body for a moment, just so my nervous system could recalibrate. And then when I felt more at peace and my breathing, had kind of gone back to a different type of rhythm, then I could come back to what had previously felt overwhelming or perhaps too intense. So it was a balancing game between that. And then also allowing that sensation to be there, not making it right, not making it wrong, not making it something to fix, but literally giving it permission to be in that expression in that moment. And that was the most amount of unconditional love that I could have given myself in that moment, to not make my body wrong
Right.
for having had the experience to begin with, but also to be able to be open to feeling that level of sensation and experience in a way where it softened, not because I was trying to fix it, shift it, change it, make it go away, but literally because I was willing to acknowledge that it was happening.
Right. You gave it space.
Gave it space and kindness.
Yeah. And so since then, have you had any back problems?
No,
And when did this happen? Like,
no. It happened in 2023. I mean, excuse me, it happened in 2020. So 3 years ago. That's what I was trying to say.
happened in 2020.
Yeah.
And were the doctors blown away at how quickly you healed? Did you even go back to the doctor ever again after that one time?
I didn't actually. No,
You
it
didn't.
just, no, for me, that just didn't feel like the aligned path that was right for me. I really trusted in my body's ability to heal. And I did work with or partnered with a wonderful physical therapist that helped with just alignment and strengthening and more body awareness and things like that. And I did eventually get some hands-on body work from a cranial sacral therapist. And I actually also worked with an occupational therapist to just help me kind of reintegrate on a neurological level, the higher level skills that, my brain had been on reset with. So driving and, you know, balancing as I turned my head and, just
You had to go back and do all of that stuff, even though your issue points were down at the lower half of your spine.
yes. So where my vertebrae broke open was mid to lower back,
Mhm.
and then my tailbone
Yeah,
and my sacrum, so the triangle shaped bone.
yeah,
And then I had impact to the back of my head
that's right. I forgot.
where our balance center is.
Mhm.
So when I was able to be up and moving around and walking and, needing to walk and turn my head and talk and do things that take multiple movements and that take multiple areas of the brain, I needed help reintegrating those things.
I see.
And I knew I did need some external support with that. And so I did that for maybe about 4 to 6 weeks, and then it integrated pretty quickly with some of the other things that I was doing.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Mhm.
So do you feel like this, because they always say that there are no such thing as accidents. And when you hurt yourself, it's already happened, right? And so you having that breaking open moment was already on its trajectory. And what came of that? Like it was
Mm.
necessary to happen because now what came of that?
Yeah. I do definitely feel like it was predestined to have that experience for sure. And it taught me not just the things that I shared. I mean, it's so many things that I learned from the experience, but it actually ended up being a really beautiful creative catalyst for one of the curriculums that I ended up birthing, creating, which is Brilliant and Barefoot. Because I learned so much about that preconception body piece that I was mentioning. But more importantly, I learned how to reconnect with my own feet, how to orient my whole body, how my whole midline develops, and why that's important for us to have that strong, solid foundation, not just physically, but also very, very emotionally and spiritually, and how our feet really connect us, not just with the earth, but our own footprint of light, and how our feet are really here to help us anchor our light on this earth so that our body feels safe to be carrying that volume and that expression of light as we walk our path every day. And so I went back and was able to kind of repattern that with my own inner baby and own inner child. And I realized how much of a difference I felt, not only in my own nervous system and physically, but very much spiritually and emotionally, how much more connected I felt to my soul, my my full body of wisdom, um, and really learning to co-parent and partner with the earth in a way that I never knew was actually really possible, but that I really craved, as a kid, and seeing how that really helped me heal. So it ended up becoming the inspiration and the backstory of how, this New Earth educational pathway called Brilliant and Barefoot actually really came into being to help children be at home in their physical body as a being of light.
Yeah, so important because we're so disconnected from our bodies. So people can access Brilliant and Barefoot, right? Brilliant and Barefoot via the Embodied Brilliance website.
Yes.
right?
Yes, they sure
And
can.
you would probably recommend that new mothers who are pregnant or have already recently given birth access this material,
Yeah.
Brilliant and Barefoot. And in doing so, they will be helping their children, their babies, to connect with their bodies, and also the parent, because they're going through the exercises, will also learn to connect with their inner child and really sort of ground into the earth and connect.
Mhm.
So
Yes, well said. Yeah. So Brilliant and Barefoot is for ages 0 to 8. And so it includes babies, which is really phenomenal because there's not a whole lot of educational curriculums or child development that's addressing this particular piece of how important our feet are to anchoring our light here and how that creates safety for the body and creates a home for the soul and creates a way where we learn how to honor and acknowledge the body as something meaningful and sacred to our human existence, that it's a meaningful part of being human. So definitely for new moms and, you know, if you're raising and nurturing young ones, this is a beautiful pathway and way of being to be in the world and to more fully embody, who you truly are.
but you just said it's for 0 to 8, but it's
Mhm.
actually 0 to like 88.
It's really for anyone who's curious.
It's just more focused on the 0 to 8 if you're a caregiver. If these are the things that
Mhm.
you can do to help this other child, but you can always help your inner child as well.
Absolutely. And that's how the curriculum is set up. There's things for the the parent to be enjoying with their children. And there's things for parents where they're educating and relearning and remembering things. And then there's activities, that are also just for the adults themselves as well.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your testimonial.
You're so welcome. Yeah, it's there's always this beautiful another layer of expansion and healing that happens, when I'm able to talk about it. So yeah, and it's a really big reason of why I do the work that I do, especially, you know, it gave birth to Brilliant and Barefoot and so many other things. It just gave me a whole new perspective um, on how the body works and how to really honor its miraculous existence, because it is our natural design to heal.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have been able to do that without realizing the connection that my body naturally has to the earth and the connection that my body naturally has to my own soul, my higher wisdom, and source herself.
Yeah. And, I'm in that space right now where just kind of thinking of everything, and when you hurt yourself, right? Or when you're experiencing symptoms of like cold or discomfort, right? It's like I
Mm.
get these little things where like, oh, I get it. Like, so I hurt my back via like 3 weeks ago, right? And again, it's
Mhm.
like everything already happened, right? So I'm like, okay, well, then I guess I'm just gonna let it be and see what happens. And maybe it's this and maybe it's that. Like I'm literally like thinking in the emotional field. Like, what am I doing in my life that I could be doing differently? And that might fix, that might help my body to sort of integrate itself or whatever. And then I like in my mind, I'm like, oh, actually, what I'm experiencing is that we don't need to run away from discomfort. Like
Mm.
we've been trained growing up in this society that anytime you feel any kind of discomfort, to get rid of it, to
Right.
dull it with
Right.
drugs or whatever, right? A band-aid effect. And it's not helping you because we're disconnected with our bodies. It's actually our bodies talking to us. And it's okay to feel this discomfort and move through it. And just kind of the big word right now I'm hearing a lot of is curiosity.
Mm.
right? Because you mentioned it. And then I'm reading this book called It's Not It's Not Me, It's You. It's like a
Mm.
relationship book. And one
Mhm.
of the tools that they tell you is have curiosity in relationships. When you're
Mhm.
having any kind of like judgment or discomfort in a relationship, have curiosity, right? Accept it and have gratitude.
Mhm. Mhm.
So if we always engage with curiosity instead of this sort of like barreling over, power over insistence that we're programmed with,
Mhm.
right? Like always pointing out something's wrong when it's not actually wrong. It's just is.
Yes. And also, I love what you're bringing up here because it makes me really think about just the energy of judgment as well. Like thinking when we have something like, for instance, what happened to me, one of the things that really came up in my awareness was the extreme amount of judgment that I felt towards myself for that happening. Because here I was thinking, I share about embodiment. I created curriculums around this. This is what I do for a living, and this happened. And to really see that storyline and that self judgment, really playing out around, oh, I should have known better. But
Yeah.
it's interesting to watch what can arise when we have our body speaking to us so clearly. And I've always known that our body loves us like no one else can because it's so willing to be that vessel of communication and get our attention through experiences and sensations that can feel really pleasurable, that can feel not so great, or that can feel downright debilitating and painful. And what I've come to realize is that nothing on that spectrum is right or wrong. When something
Right.
happens, it's happening for, communication. And it's a part of us that's asking, to really be heard, to be held, and to be witnessed back into our wholeness is really what it is. But it's, we can get entangled in our own judgment and storyline about what we think that means when something like that happens.
Right.
The self-judgment or the blame or something like that. So those were self-judgment and blame were two really big things for me to really work through from that.
I think that's a really big learning for everything. How do we, but that's the whole thing. It's like how do we approach um wisdom and the sharing of information that does not have blame, that moves away from blame,
Mm,
shame, judgment.
mm,
Like the word should doesn't
mhm.
need to be in the vocabulary. And
Right.
the word but doesn't need to be in the vocabulary.
Yeah.
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 And
Mhm.
that just applies to so many things when you're talking about your body, and not, there is no right or wrong when things happen. That's pretty much how it is in all relationships. When people do things, that's not right or wrong. They
Right.
did it. And there's a
Mm,
reason. And how do we move forward from it?
mhm, mhm, mhm. Yeah. And going through that bodily experience for me taught me profoundly about the power of kindness. Where can I meet intensity in my own system, in my own being, in my own physical body, emotional body, mental body, with
Yeah.
such softness and such kindness, such grace.
Yeah. It begins within, it begins with us. And it always goes back. I don't know if I shared it with you before, but I, at one point a while back, I was kind of like reading the Bible every once in a while. And, it says like, do unto others as you would do unto yourself. And it struck me that, you know what? This is why the world is how it is, because for some reason we beat ourselves up.
Mm,
We don't love ourselves.
mm,
Think of how many times you come across somebody that even I do it sometimes. Oh my God, I'm so stupid.
mhm,
Words matter. Don't say things like that,
mhm,
right?
mhm, mhm. And I feel for people who are really on an awakened path, it can be easy to also get tripped up in the storyline of, if my body is communicating through pain or discomfort, uh-oh, it means I've done something wrong. I'm not doing something right. I'm not doing my practices right. I didn't heal that well enough, or I'm not on the right path, or I'm doing this, or I'm doing that. Like, it can be a way to perpetuate cycles of shame, blame, and judgment that are so deeply embedded into our psyche.
Yeah. What about if you do have pain and you just kind of move through it and you just kind of let it go and the body makes adjustments and you just deal? What about that?
Do you mean like you're not meeting it and being present with it, and
Yeah.
you're just kind of like, oh, it's there, but I'm not going to look at it type of thing? Is that what you mean? Mm, great question. I feel personally that if it's something that our soul and our body are really here to evolve forward, heal, be with, bring back into our awareness, it will happen. Like, it might pop up again in a different way. It's kind of like how some people might say, oh, I have back pain every now and then. It comes and goes. Sometimes things come, sometimes things go. But I also think that it takes a certain level of awareness and being able to realize, oh, that's a sensation there. Is it needing to just be stretched? Does that just need like a hand there for a second? Just a sheer acknowledgement in this moment. And then maybe the energy shifts, right? Or, oh, that's tight right there. I'm just going to stretch my hamstring. And then maybe that's all that your body needed or wanted in that moment. So I feel like there can be a lot of different variables that play into that, but I don't feel like I personally have all the answers for, what happens personally with people's own relationship to, what's going on in their body. However, I will say that it is a very heavy habit to override sensation and messages and communication from our soul, because it's such a programmed habit, in culture and society. And if people had the opportunity to slow down and be more in touch with, what the body is trying to communicate, it might be a really interesting adventure to explore.
Yeah. I think that is a great answer because we don't have the answers. Only each body has the answer for itself.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. But so also one last question. Um, are we, is it common to just walk around with a chronic little pain here and there? I guess you just answered that a second ago, right? It's just like if you feel it all the time, maybe there's something that needs addressing.
And I also feel like it also depends upon our own willingness. How present are we in our body? Right? Because sometimes it feels better, it feels safer for whatever reason. Maybe that's our programmed habit, is to not be in the body as much, to not be as grounded. And so we may not feel things until we come more back fully into the body and then realize, oh my gosh, I actually have a lot of tightness and discomfort right there. Or, oh, wow, that part of my body is swollen.
Yeah.
I think it depends on the speed of our conditioning, um, how fast we move through life, what our relationship to our own physical form is. Is the mind trying to pull the body in a little red wagon behind it? Or, are the mind and the body trying to partner and be in harmony and be on board with one another? There's so many different variables of that. And sometimes I feel like the things that can come and go in the body can have an emotional basis in nature. And then it's also sometimes maybe our body's needing more nutritional support with something,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. We can't negate that either.
Yeah. So it's really about being your own best partner, friend, ally. Like with kids, I often say we're making friends with our physical form, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
How do we do that? How do we partner with it? And do we want to? That's really the main question is really, how do we view the body? What's our paradigm around how intelligent and wise and um, miraculous and advanced, do we feel this physical form really is?
Right.
And what truly are its capabilities and mechanisms that are part of its natural design of healing?
Yeah. I think that is probably just like the main focus is really understanding how powerful our bodies are and
Mm.
acknowledging that. That would be like step one to really connecting with the body, is that curiosity to learn more about how incredible and self-healing this physical form is.
We wouldn't be here without our physical form. We wouldn't be here without a physical body, and that's how important it is. It's literally the avenue of expression for our light, the avenue of expression for how everything we want to do and be and create in this world flows from our infinite nature out into this physical reality, around us. So seeing it as a meaningful part of our human existence is a great place, and so often I have parents will ask, well, I really want to know what my children's gifts are. I want to be able to nurture that part of their spirit so that their abilities, are nurtured and continue to expand and amplify over time. And while that's such a beautiful, amazing statement and question, it's also like, well, actually, let's back that up a little bit and look at the body as the gift itself. First and foremost, before any other before any other gift is actually really recognized or acknowledged, because for us to express our gifts and abilities here on this earth plane, as it's set up now, we need a physical body to express it through.
Yeah, right. And the better we can get connected with our bodies, the better we can do our work.
That's right, inner and outer.
Mhm. Always inner, Allison, always inner.
Mhm. Well, like I said at the very beginning, it's a never-ending journey because the possibilities for infinite expression are infinite.
Yeah, and at the very beginning when you said, "Oh, aren't we always on a healing journey?" It's consistent, and it is. Anytime we feel any kind of anything, it's part of the journey.
Yeah.
And how interesting it is. What's my body saying to me now?
Hmm. Yes, and this just dropped in to kind of dovetail back into what you were talking about with different sensations and how they may come and go and what arises and things like that. And doesn't necessarily mean that we need to sit and listen, and like how you were asking that. I think it's also important for us to realize as humans that our body has a capacity to absorb things that aren't necessarily ours either. right? Like it's really easy to take on the emotional discomfort and pain of others that can then get stored someplace in our own body and that we're processing as ours. We think that is ours, but maybe it actually really isn't. And the other piece that felt important to speak up about is the things that are inherited, right? That have maybe always been a part of our ancestral lineage or a part of the family.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But it doesn't have to be.
But that doesn't have to be. Mhm.
And
Mhm.
we can shed that though without outside help, couldn't we?
Yes. And it's also important to recognize when it's appropriate. And by appropriate, I'm meaning true in the moment, when it's time to have outside support
Mhm.
by a trusted, practitioner or healer that we really resonate with, that can help us maybe see the places that we're not able to see ourselves.
Yeah.
That's the interdependence, right? And
Yeah.
that we're here for.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. I mean, hello, I have a bunch of activators on Perfect Child. Any one of them can be a tool. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Sometimes we just need that.
Yeah, and realizing that being in our body, having a relationship with our body is a co-creative process with the wisdom of our body, with the earth, with source, with our own soul, and then with those that we choose to partner with for our health.
Yes. Yes. Not MDs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did just say that. Not
Yes.
MDs.
Well, and that can be a whole nother conversation.
We won't go there. I won't
For
jump off my soapbox today.
For me, my journey was best served along my path to not access the traditional medical matrix.
Right.
Mhm.
I find that people get better healings that way.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Such a pleasure.
Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Mm. Just, it's such a joy and an honor to be able to share in this space, from such a personal, heartfelt experience. And may it be of service, to those who listen.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.